What's up, guys? It's Trey4L, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about introverted intuition. The reason I'm going to make this video is because a lot of people have been, I've just seen in a lot of places, people really like my introverted intuition videos, and I'm really glad because those are my favorite. I really feel like there were a lot of insights that led to the introverted intuition videos, and half the time when I'm using introverted intuition, I realize that I'm using it in the middle of it, and whatever train of thought I was going on, I stop and start studying the train of thought I was going on, just so that I can understand introverted intuition better, which can lead to a lot of confusion because I can never finish my thoughts. So, there has been quite a bit of sacrifice for those videos. So one of the analogies that I'd like to bring up, and this is about both introverted intuition and extroverted intuition, and I just feel like it's very important that I talk about both because they're the same function, essentially. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about a picture that somebody has commented on one of my videos and said that, they said on the video, sorry, they commented on the video and said that they always saw introverted intuition as a crystal with light shining through it. And, as you rotate the crystal, the light shines through a different way. Now, I've thought about that, and I was wondering if I saw it the same way, and I didn't. But over time, I developed an idea, and it's because of the idea that they gave me. So I'd like to explain that. So that original idea did not start from my own thought. It was somebody on YouTube that commented below. You can go and find them. I'm sorry I'm not giving you credit. I should have gone and looked for it, but I didn't. Just started the video. I agree with the concept, but I'd like to add on to it. Because I like to see it as, let's say you're on a computer, and you know how like they have those 3D models and you can pinch and drag and it'll rotate the model. So this is how I see introverted intuition. It's in the computer, okay, on this model base. And you've got the crystal here. And let's say that you've got a light shining through the crystal and you see whatever is on the ground right in front of you. Okay? So the crystal is here, and the light is shining through. The light's shining through the crystal, and the whatever the light looks like is right here on the table. Okay. Now you can spin this crystal, and the light stays exactly where it's at. So does the crystal, but it just rotates, right? The light goes through the crystal, and the ideas are displayed the light is displayed on the table a certain way. For extroverted intuition, it's almost as if the focus is on the table and what the idea is. And it's almost like someone takes the crystal and just spins it a whole bunch. And that's extroverted intuition. It's like this, it's like they're taking this crystal and just spinning it. And instead of looking at the crystal, they're looking at the light that's on the table because of the light that's shining through the crystal. So they're just like looking at the light and all the different ideas and all the different ways that this crystal can be seen. Okay. However, for introverted intuition, they aren't so good at spinning the crystal, but they're better at going at turning the crystal and going, I like this, and looking at whatever's on the ground, the light, the pattern that's on the ground. But what they do, instead of just focusing on the actual pattern, is they look through the crystal and see how the light came through the crystal to form what is seen on the table. It's like they're looking for what's beneath and exactly what was inside the idea that caused whatever's going on here. And here's why I say that. Because extroverted intuition is spewed at me from a lot of friends. They'll just like spew ideas out. And when I get those ideas, I'm listening and listening and listening, and I don't like a lot of them. But then there'll be one that it hits me and it just makes sense. And everything goes through and it's like I see all of the depth. Now, I'd also like to point out that my ESTJ friend Blake one day was giving me some ideas as to all the different things I could do. And I started thinking about it, and I came up with my own idea. But then I was like, and I started walking away, and I was like, working on the idea. And this is the difference between Blake and me. I start working on the idea in my head, and figuring out how it would happen and stuff like that. But Blake looked at me, and he's like, stop thinking about the idea and do something with it. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're full of crap. That's what I'm doing. No, you just said you were working on the idea. It's the same thing. This is where things start happening. Because for Blake, when he generates an idea, he's using extroverted intuition. But the tool that he uses to make this happen in the real world is introverted sensing. So, for Blake, what he'll do is he'll take an idea, and he'll take that idea, and he won't need a whole bunch of the idea, like all of the details of the idea and how the idea would fit into reality. But what he does is he takes the small idea and he makes it applicable. He makes it practical, realistic. And really what he's doing is he's just taking the idea and he's finding all the things that he knows he can use to make it happen. And then he's executing that. For me, it does not work the same because my introverted intuition is not necessarily focused on the practicality of the idea. Yes, it is because what good is an idea if it can't be executed in the future? That's not, the thing is I'll take the idea and the idea I generate it and all of the background stuff, all of the things that would make the idea perfect. And what this does is it gives me a plan of all the things I'll have to do. Because for extroverted intuition, it was just the idea and it was thrown out there. But introverted intuition is more about the depth and detail behind the idea. But the only thing is, a lot of introverted, you may have one introverted intuitive user, two introverted intuitive users. So two NI users, and then you may have an NE user. And these two NI users may listen to the NE user, and the NE user may spew out a bunch of ideas. Let's say he spews out an idea, and one of the NI users says, that's a crappy idea, I'm not going to listen to that. But the other NI user hears that same idea and goes, whoa, and it all makes sense. And they can fulfill the idea and make the idea big and grand, and that's because of the personal experiences of the two NI users. It's not that the NE user's ideas are not great, and because I may listen to an NE user go off and go, all of these ideas are stupid, and then he gives one, and then I go, whoa, that idea is awesome, and then I use that, and I focus on it, and everything becomes clear in the idea. Yes, but that does not mean that the other ideas that the NE user had were any better or worse than the one that I picked. The thing is, that's the one that clicked for me because I have all of this abstract knowledge that sort of grabs onto the idea and formulates the idea and makes it big and makes it make more sense. And that's because there's a pattern as to the way that things are working because of the NI user. Now, here's something, I need to finish that thought really quick. So that's why some NI users may click with certain ideas and some NI users may not. And that's because they're listening and it has to apply to the things they've experienced and the patterns they've seen in the world in order to make that idea as big and grand and make a lot of sense. And so the thing is, occasionally, I may, like, it seems like in the background of my mind, I'll have a bunch of ideas and dismiss them. And I think this is my subconscious extroverted intuition, because I've noticed, I've been studying my own ideas and where they're coming from. And what I've noticed is that I'll take a idea and I'll go, do I have anything to expand on this idea? And then go, no, because it's crap. And then I'll dismiss it. But what I'm noticing is that if I take, okay, because the thing is, remember, the thing that made the extroverted intuition like idea so big for the introverted intuitive was that they were taking their personal experiences and the things that they have seen and applying it to the idea. And so, when I have an idea, I've noticed that if I take the idea at its core, where it first started, and I just take that and I ask myself if it's a good idea, part of me wants to say yes, it's a great idea because I've already worked on it and I've already made it big and make a lot of sense. But the thing is, when I take away all of my personal experiences and isolate the idea by itself, when I look at it, I think, that's a crappy idea, because it seems shallow, because it doesn't have all this depth to it. But because of all the things I've seen and working on the theory, it becomes big and it makes more sense. So this is what I'm trying to get across, is that the extroverted intuition is lots and lots and lots of ideas and different ways to see things. And introverted intuitive may think that the extroverted intuitive users' ideas are dumb, but it's just because it does not line up with their personal experience and patterns of the world that they've seen so far. Now, does that mean that some extroverted intuitive users' ideas aren't dumb? No, there are going to be dumb, and so are the introverted intuitives, because the introverted intuitive may come up with some big grand theory that makes no sense whatsoever, and it's because they have crappy personal experience, or they're just really unhealthy individuals who process the information completely wrong. If you can process information in a right or wrong way. See, this is what happens. See, I'm just going about in my own thought process, and then here I am thinking, well, what are all the different types going to think about what I'm saying? And then I hear the ENTPs interrupting me and going, what standard are you using to determine whether or not someone is processing information in a right or wrong way? And then I'm like, you know what, they're right. And then, so I think it's a good thing because it helps me validate my arguments a little bit better. They're just unhealthy. You can be an unhealthy individual, and that can affect your thought process to be negative. And so that's what I mean. Don't listen to the right or wrong thing. That's invalid. So anyways, introverted intuition, I've talked about this before, it's a very interesting thing because it's not taking, I'll give you an example. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Okay, sorry. I was trying to remember something I had thought about earlier, and I remember. I was at work, and there was I was working with somebody else, and there's a camera that allows you to see like a certain part of the building, and I was working right next to the camera. So I look up, not the camera, the TV that's showing what's on the camera. So I look up to the TV, and I see one of my coworkers walking, and they walk behind the camera, and then it shuts off. So then I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And so I take I take what happened, and I focus on it, and I say, what could this mean? Now, the difference between an extroverted intuitive user and an introverted intuitive user is the extroverted intuitive user would probably take the situation and think about all the things that this could mean and wait to see which one it is, because it's going to be extremely fascinating to find out, because it kind of gets you curious. Think about it. All of these different ideas, which one is it? And then something happens and you go, oh, it was the 5th one, or oh, it was the 982nd one that I thought about. That's the one it was. Or maybe it was even, oh, I didn't expect that. The introverted intuitive user kind of gives a little bit more focus on 1 or 2 ideas. And so what I did in this situation was I saw that the camera blacked out when my my coworker walked by. And so then I was like, okay, what does that mean? And I thought, what if he's here to kill me? Now, I didn't necessarily believe that this was the case. I didn't believe that I was going to die, and I did not believe that I was going to be killed or anything of the sort. But it was an idea, so I gave it a bit more depth, and I thought about what would happen next. See, the camera only glitched out for a split second, so I couldn't see him anymore on the camera though, meaning he was behind it. So I was kind of worried whether or not it was going to black out again. And if it was going to black out again, what would be his course of action? And I say, if he were trying to turn off the camera, he would be doing it to achieve some kind of result. And the only one I can think about right now is committing a crime. But considering which doors are locked in the area, he wouldn't be able to commit much of a crime besides possibly murdering me. And so that's when I decided that I might die. But I didn't actually think I was going to die. See, it was just a petty idea. But I was giving it more depth, and I came up with an action plan. Okay, the camera's on, thank God. But it might go off. And if it does go off, then that means he's going to run into this room, and he's going to, try to kill me or something. I don't know. That was the idea. So now I'm like, okay, if he runs in this room, I need to have a weapon. So I look around for a weapon, and I go, okay, this is the weapon I need. But the thing was, once I decided that that was the weapon I needed, I realized I was wrong, because thing is, Blake left his knife at my house. And so that's when I was like, ha. So I reached into my bag and grabbed the knife that I meant to take to his house, and I put it, like, it had like a thing on it, like a buckle. So I unbuckled it, and I put it in my pocket so it was ready to be taken out at any time. And I put that in there, and then I looked at the screen, and I gave it 10 more seconds, and the screen didn't black out. So I kept on doing my job, and I would keep looking after like every 10, 15 seconds, and then until I could see that he was in the camera, like that I could see him in the camera. That's when I realized that my idea was wrong. So thing is, for introverted intuitive users, instead of creating all these different contingencies, all the different things that could happen, and then, different ideas or predictions as to all the things that could happen, and then waiting in excitement for which one it may be, the introverted intuitive user would give a little bit more focus as to 1 or 2 ideas because of a collection of evidence. For me, the evidence was, look, this guy goes behind the camera turns off. He doesn't get in front of the camera when it turns back on. What is he doing? What is his mindset? Thinking, okay, his mindset may be, there are other ideas in the background, like, oh, well, this may not be the case. He may have been walking over here. He may have been doing that. But I'm focusing on one idea, and that's what's important. And so I go, if he is doing this, then that means that his mindset is probably, okay, I have to turn off the camera, and then I have to run over there. He may be sitting behind the camera right now, calculating every move he's going to make before he runs in and kills me. So I need to be ready for that, because the moment that he turns off the camera, he'll be running in here, going to kill me. I didn't actually think I was going to die. That's just the thing. I was preparing for a just in case, an empty extroverted intuition idea that I was trying to expand on and make a big deal. Because if this were the case, because there are unknowns out in the world, and if this is the case, and this is something that may or may not happen, then if I decide, because I'm looking at it from an introverted intuitive standpoint, if I decide to ignore this idea and continue on, it costs me my life. So I will decide to focus on this idea and make it a big deal, etc., etc. Where the extroverted intuitive would argue with himself and consider whether or not he was right or wrong, but would be more concerned with all the different things that could be happening. While my focus is not on all the things that could be happening. Instead, it is on what may happen and what will happen. So what I was focused on is what may happen. I was thinking, well, you know, if he is not trying to kill me right now, that he's just walking around behind the camera and he's not even trying to turn it off and it just glitched out. So in that case, I'm okay. There's nothing to worry about. But the thing is, I do not treat, because if that's the case, I don't have to think about it. But if it's the case that he's going to kill me, I could die. So I need to focus on this and get ready for this. Because an extroverted intuitive would probably take the same idea and consider each equally. They may favor one over the other, or, you know, something of the sort. But I did not do that. I was more focused on what would happen, what may happen. So, not all the things that could happen, but what may happen or what will happen. So, that's what I was focused on. See, introverted intuition is trying to build a framework of the way that the world works. So like the pattern of the world. And so in that case, I was considering what the pattern of the world could be. That was where it started. This is why extroverted intuition and introverted intuition need each other. Because it started with the idea of what could happen, what the pattern of the world could be. And then I decided that if this is what it could be, then this is what may happen. This is how it may work. And because I was concerned as to how the actual thing may happen, that was the introverted intuition kind of getting depth, because I was focused on what may happen versus what could happen. Yeah. Really, it's constantly trying to take experiences and take note that this is the order in which things go. This is the way that things go. But I'm not done yet, because there's more to introverted intuition than just that. There's another thing. One time I was at a camp, and they asked me to talk about respect. And so they said they wanted to talk about respect and what it was. So I said, okay, and they said it doesn't need to be that long, and I'm really good with generating speeches off the bat. I mean, honestly, especially when it's symbolic, like, you could be like, I want you to do it. I mean, I told Blake this the other day. I said, you could honestly tell me, hey, Trey, do a speech on microwaves. And I could take anything I know about microwaves and make it symbolic and apply it to a life lesson really fast. So I'm pretty good with speeches, or at least generating some kind of symbolic, meaningful one. I know you guys have never seen me do that, and I'm probably not the best when it comes to the actual public speaking, but the generation of a speech I can most definitely do. Off the bat. It's really fun, actually. Anyways, so what I did is I went to Google and I said define respect, and I'll just do this really quick. Define respect.
Respect. A feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements.
Okay, so a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. So essentially what I did is when reading this, I was trying to break it down with an NI-like focus. I took this and pictured it, and I saw somebody having a feeling of deep admiration for someone else because they were watching them, seeing who they were, their abilities, all the things they've accomplished. These are all things that this person was looking at this person and going, wow, I admire this person. And what I ended up doing in my head is I kind of flipped it around. And I did this. And I said, this person has achieved their skills and all these achievements because they have spent time doing something. See, the thing is, when it comes to like skills and things of the sort, a lot of times your skills, your ideas, things, not ideas, a lot of your skills come from something that you were pretty good at to start with, and so you kept exploring that area and sort of taking things and going, just exploring the idea or the skill, and eventually, getting better over time. And so the idea was, I was thinking that this person had some kind of thing that they were naturally good at the beginning, but then they spent time exploring it and got a lot better, and better with understanding it and things of the sort. So, in this situation, I see that the person that you have a deep feeling of admiration for, you can ask them all kinds of questions about, instead of respecting somebody is not necessarily just treating someone in a good way. It's taking the person and saying, what is it about this person that I admire? Because the thing is, a lot of people walk into a room and say, and they're like, how do I contribute to this? Or how, we think a lot about what we are versus what everyone else is. And so a lot of times our focus is about impressing others, or using our skills and abilities and providing our own expertise. But the thing is, in this respect, is going up to somebody or a group of people and focusing on those people and trying to find the skills and abilities that these people have, so that you can admire that skill and ability because they've spent time focusing on this skill and ability. And you walking up to them is sort of like going up and recognizing that they have this skill and that they've spent time working on this and admiring that. But at the same time, you can see it as an opportunity to learn from somebody else and ask them where this skill came from and all the things that they learned. If it's a similar skill, you can ask them questions about how they got to where they were and what problems they came up with and the things that pushed them to achieve this versus let it go. Let it go. I'm not going to sing. I was thinking about it, and I didn't. I'm not going to sing. Point is, what I'm saying is, the introverted intuition in this scenario took a feeling of deep admiration for someone else elicited by their achievements and things of the sort, and kind of rotated it and said, where did this person get their their skills and abilities and things of the sort? What is this person's experience with these? What is their perspective? And that is probably the right word to use when it comes to introverted intuition, is their perspective. What is their perspective with this skill that they have and where it came from and what it's turned into? And taking that and trying to apply it to things they've learned. So, for example, something that I know is that a lot of us have this mindset of going in and kind of thinking, what can I contribute to this? Or how can I provide my expertise? But the thing is, focusing on the other people is focusing on the things that they have experience with. Because that's what you're doing with respect, is you're having an admiration for somebody else's feelings. So really what it's doing is it's taking the definition and it's rotating it. And it's looking at the depth behind all these and all the things that they know from the outside experiences and trying to apply that together. And so that's something I see in introverted intuition as well, is that, sorry about that, is that I took this respect and I kind of rotated it and looked at it from different angles and took things that I know people do commonly. People will walk in and expect and think, what can I provide for this person? How can these people use my expertise? When I speak, people should listen to me because I know this or that. And so this is just, for the confident individual, these are things that people will do. And I know that, and I'm not saying that everyone does it, but it's something that is common. And because I know that, I can apply that to this theory and bring something out of it. And so that's just an example of taking something, a concept, a crystal, and shining a light through it and looking at the light, yes, but also examining how the light came through the crystal and what facets it hit to create this thing you see on the ground. And so the introverted intuitive is trying to find the unknowns behind an idea. And it's not necessarily just an idea, it may just be the world in general. They want to know all the invisibles and all the things in the background that work and process and maneuver. So I've heard ENTJs called the scientists occasionally, and I would say that an ENTJ is not necessarily a practical scientist in the sense that a lot of people may think, but they're looking for the unknown mechanisms, the invisible mechanisms that work in the background to make things work the way they do. A lot of my theories and ideas, I know that they're right and correct, but there isn't any real way to prove them. And so that's something that I see, and it's really, I think what it really is taking whatever that I'm seeing in the real world and trying to just think about it like this. What I'm seeing in the real world is like the light that's on the ground. And I'm trying to find all the depth in the thing called life, the crystal, that made it appear the way it did. Why does it look like this? When I look at something, there is, I'm seeing a situation and I'm wondering all the different angles of this situation. And so I may not look at it like an extroverted intuitive, but there are parts of my mind that subconsciously they go, here's all the things, here's all these ideas as to what could be going on. And my introverted intuition is trying to validate this and really giving it more depth, each of these ideas, more depth, and going, how do these apply? Are these ideas legitimate, and do they make a lot of sense for the actual setup that we've got going on here? And the introverted intuition sort of buries through and finds which perspectives make a lot of sense and goes, okay, we can eliminate all these ideas because they don't make sense. I think that these are the ones, these ideas make a lot of sense. These are the different perspectives I can see this with. A lot of times people give their perspective, and the first thing I think is their perspective correct? Because I can take that same thing and I can turn it around and look at it this way instead. And so really, instead of listening to what someone actually says, I'm taking their idea and trying to rotate it and see all the different ways that it can be seen. This is what introverted intuition does. And extroverted intuition really feeds my introverted intuition because it's constant flow of ideas that give me this introverted intuition understanding. Introverted intuition is more expanding on it. It takes more time, it's more processing. And all the introverted functions work that way. The introverted functions take more time to process, more time to go through. And a lot of times I wish that I had more brain space and was able to focus on a lot more ideas than I can already. Because the thing is, there's ideas that I have that I want to spend time expanding on, but don't have the time. And it's like in the background, I have all these ideas flowing through, and I'm like, I really wish I could focus on this one, and this one, and this one, all at the same time. But it's really difficult. And so this is what I see from introverted intuition. Extroverted intuition provides all kinds of ideas, and introverted intuition gives a personal perspective, applies personal understanding as to all the different ways that this perspective can be seen. And I'll just give one more example. I know this is a long video, but I really hope that you're learning something. Another thing that I can say is, and I might have to get up for this one. If I'm here right? And somebody comes up and they say, and I see something happening. I can say, this is what I think about what I'm seeing. But then at the same time, another time I've been over here, and I can say, from over here, what I see here is this. And that's where introverted intuition comes into play, because I know that I've seen people say this, and I know that I've seen people say this. And so I can kind of mold these together and go, this may be happening. And this is where the idea comes from. Because I have seen people say that, oh, so-and-so lied to me and did this and said that and whatever. But then I've also gone out and asked the other person their perspective and learned that this is what they said it was. And so now I see all the things that can make this person emotional, can make this person not want to tell me certain things. I can see why they wouldn't tell me, and all these other things because I've seen two perspectives. And so what happens is, you know, it's kind of like a 2D thing where I've seen people give me this. This is what they're telling me about. They're seeing this, and then they're turning around and telling me about that. But I've also seen people over here, and they see this, and they turn around and they tell me about it. And so what happens is I take these two images and I kind of combine them and merge them together and try to see it as a 3D object. And this is where I can, it's not necessarily, introverted intuition is taking a 2D image and turning it into a 3D image based off of what we know. And I think that extroverted intuition is like a 2D image, but it's a lot of them. It's just a whole bunch of 2D images flying by. And it's kind of like you're taking, for introverted intuition, it's kind of like you're taking a lot of the extroverted intuition ideas and you're taking those away. Actually, no, take that back. It's almost like the extroverted intuitive is just sliding through all these ideas. But the introverted intuitive is taking one at a time and going, and really breaking it down. Instead of having all these ideas, it's more about validating the idea. And so if I wanted to, I could take an idea I think makes no sense, and I could sit there and validate it and say, well, if we consider it in this way, it can be understood in this form and stuff of the sort. I can do that, and it is an ability I have. And so I think it's my extroverted thinking that limits that from happening, because I make a judgment on the idea and it goes away. So take back anything I may have said about the extroverted intuition idea not having significance at all, because I didn't really say that. If the user wanted to, the introverted intuitive user, NI user, could actually validate the idea, I'm sure, if they tried hard enough. But for ENTJs, they're kind of like, but why would I do it? Where is it taking me? It's not really taking me anywhere. So I don't really need to do that. I would rather get somewhere with this and have a good idea that I can apply to real life instead of just sitting here and pondering ideas, because an introverted intuitive can expand on any idea. However, for me, I'm trying to get somewhere. But it's also true that an introverted intuitive may have a really hard time expanding on an extroverted intuitive's idea because of their personal experiences and personal understanding of the world. And so, like I said, you're taking a 2D image and making it 3D, and it's kind of carved. The 3D image is really made up of all your personal experiences with life. Because if I hadn't heard what this person said and what this person said about what was happening, then I wouldn't understand it correctly. Because think about it, when I make this 3D image, it's based off of the two perspectives that I've heard and the two things that I've heard. Sometimes I can listen to two people and assume that both of them are lying and that something else is going in the middle. And it's because I have studied these situations and understand these situations to be a certain way, because I'm taking the 2D image and expanding on it in a 3D form. So, I really don't want to end the video because I feel like I'm not covering it all. See, it's because I've gone out and created a personal experience of understanding what this person's perspective was and what happened. And that's why I'm able to assume. It's because somebody told me this, and somebody told me this, and I made this. So the next time somebody tells me that, I go, yes, but it could be this, creating this. And so that's what I'm saying, is that because of my personal experience, that's where the introverted intuitive assumption comes from. Is because I've seen the different perspectives and I can create the 3D image out of 2D images I've seen in different places. And so that's the best I could do to explain introverted intuition this time. Very sorry that it took 41 minutes to complete the video. But I really, really hope that you like this video, subscribe, and watch some more, and share it with your friends if you found it useful. All right, ciao.